Hello, everybody. This is Pat and Mark from ActonTV coming at you with some movie recommendations today. Mark and I used to do a movie review show like 2 years ago that we kind of like fell off of doing for a while, and we decided this would be the perfect time to kind of reboot it. So we got 12 movies that we might split up into a couple of parts. And basically, these are movies that we think that most people would absolutely love, but that a lot of people have maybe not had the opportunity to hear about. So if you're looking for something that's just a little bit different to try out, I highly recommend finding any of these movies on a streaming platform. You might have to pay. Some of these are on Netflix. Some of them you might be able to rent. I know some like YouTube, you can rent them for like a few bucks. But these are just our personal picks of films that if you're looking for something different, something that you've maybe never heard of before, to have like a totally absorbing film experience and kind of distract you from everything else going on in the world right now, these are our recommendations. But yeah, I don't know. Let's get right into it. You want to go first?
All right, sounds good. So for the first movie, I've got Run, Lola, Run.
Cool. No, good.
German movie, came out in 1999, I think, and it's really a fast-paced sort of crime action movie. A lot of fun. It stars Franca Potenta, who a lot of people would actually know her from the Bourne movie. What was the first one called? The Bourne Identity. She was the love interest in that one. But the movie itself is great because it actually is almost like three movies in one. It does this whole story thing three different times with three different outcomes. And it's kind of like a chaos theory where what she does in one story and how she interacts with different people affects them like in life. They do this really cool thing where you'll see a snapshot of somebody when she like runs by and she touches them, and you see their life and how it appears in like the first story. In the second story, something different happens and she bumps into them in a different way, and then you see something happen in their life, and it changes. So it's this cool chaos theory kind of thing. One of my favorite things about this movie is the soundtrack. So because this movie is it's so kinetic, there's so much energy. It's Run, Lola, Run. So you imagine there's a lot of running in this movie. She does a lot of running. The soundtrack is made so that it's almost like when you're watching her run, the beat is almost like a heartbeat. It's like boom, boom, boom. And so it really adds to the movie. I feel that like the music is a whole like another character to the movie. And it is what really propels it with that like sort of like that breakneck kind of speed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The other thing I really love about it is just the overall look of the movie. There's a lot of color, a lot of saturated colors. Colors play a big part of it. Whenever you see the color red, it usually is some kind of a danger for Lola. Her boyfriend in this story is Manny, and whenever you see yellow, it's the same sort of thing for him. So color plays a big part. The whole idea of the movie is that Lola's boyfriend Manny is bringing 100,000 Deutschmarks to his boss. He's in a gang, but he loses the money. And so now he calls up Lola frantic because he lost 100,000 Deutschmarks. And what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So the story revolves around her trying to get him this money, running all over the city because he needs the money in 20 minutes or else his boss is going to kill him. So her job is in 20 minutes to try to find this money, 100,000 Deutschmarks, and bring it to him. And again, there's three different scenarios on how she tries to get this money, if she gets the money, if she doesn't get the money, and what happens to them at the end. And it's a lot of fun. It's not a long movie, but it's a super energetic, fun movie to watch, to listen to, and I would highly recommend it.
It's like real time too, right?
Sort of, yeah. So yes, every 20, right. Yep.
You're keeping track of her as she's desperately trying to get from point A to point B over a certain period of time.
Yeah, and so every story is like 20 minutes long, and what happens from the beginning to end is 20 minutes. It's really cool.
Yeah, I only saw that the one time. I borrowed it from you, actually, and I had never even heard of it before.
Oh, that's
And
right.
Like,
That's right.
okay, I'll like give this a shot. And I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And one thing that's really cool is so the writer and the director of this, Tom Tykwer, also did all the music for it. So he was obviously very vital in making this movie, not just director, not just the writer, but the music as well. And again, like I said, the music is so fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, I second that, and I also think it's awesome.
Nice.
Okay, so you ready for my first one?
Let's see it.
I don't have it with me, but This is streaming on Netflix now, and I actually rewatched it last night for the first time in quite a few years. And that's What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yep.
1993 movie with Johnny Depp and Leonardo DiCaprio, directed by Lasse Hallström. He does a lot of like stories focused on families that are dramas, but also with some humor and like nice heartwarming moments in them. There's an adaptation of a novel about a young man who lives in this rural town, and it looks like it's like Nebraska or Iowa. I'm not sure what state it is. And it's this quiet little town where nothing ever really happens. Gilbert Grape is like in his early 20s, and he lives with his family that he more or less is in charge of taking care of. Their father died tragically years before. He lives with his two younger sisters who also help take care of their mother, who is like basically hasn't left the house in 7 years, and they have to take care of her. And also his 18-year-old brother, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who has severe mental impairments. And so it's just this family, and they're living in this town, and it's just kind of about their life. It doesn't have specific story beyond that, but you get to know all of the members of this small town. It's told in kind of a voiceover style. It's a movie about family. It's also a movie about being at a place in life where you're maybe kind of like stuck and you don't know what to do next. It's one of those movies, every time I would watch this movie and it would be on TV, like I would have to finish it to the end. Even when I watched it again last night, 5 minutes into it, I was just sitting there completely hooked.
Just hooked, yeah, yeah.
Just give this movie 5 minutes and I promise you'll want to see the ending of it. It has a lot of intense kind of sad moments, but it's not a bleak movie, and I think there's a lot of humor in it. And it's a very heartwarming movie, but it's not like Hallmark Channel cheesy heartwarming. Like, it earns it. It's just real people living their lives. There's all these different family moments in it, you know, and it's one of those movies where you're just with them and you get to know them and you want to find out what happens in their lives because you care about them.
Yeah, and this was one of Leonardo DiCaprio's like earliest roles too, one of his first roles.
Yeah, he apparently turned down a role in Disney's Hocus Pocus for this. He was like an up-and-coming actor, but he decided to do this instead. And he was like 17 years old in this and actually got nominated for Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for it, well before he was like a household name. Wait, what's the show he was on?
Oh yeah, he was on Growing Pains.
Yeah, so this probably, like, I'm guessing was like probably right after that.
Yeah, that's how I think when that came out. If it wasn't that one, it was around that time. I referred to Leonardo DiCaprio as the kid from Growing Pains.
Yeah,
he's obviously had a brilliant career.
Yeah, he's fantastic in the movie.
Yeah, he does a really good job. So I remember seeing it long time ago, probably like mid-90s, you know, shortly after it came out. And I've seen bits and pieces of it since then, but I don't remember it that well. I would love to see it again.
Yeah, it's just great. I love the scenes where his little brother Arnie has this thing where he constantly tries to get away and keep climbing the water tower in town.
Yes, I remember that.
And like every time the police have to come and like all the townspeople gather around and he like waves at them.
Yeah.
It's funny, and at the same sense you're like, oh man, like this must be such a nightmare. And it's just one of those things. It's like, it's life, and what are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right, I have a movie called the Hudsucker Proxy. Made by, you know, a couple of people that most people have heard of, Joel and Ethan Coen. They've done Big Lebowski, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? They've done Fargo. They did No Country for Old Men. And they always write and direct their own movies. And this one is one of their, you know, lesser known movies, The Hudsucker Proxy. But to be honest, it's actually one of my favorites. And it's a lot more lighthearted and fantastical, I guess you would say, than some of their other movies. And it's a comedy, drama, fantasy that takes place in the 1950s. And it stars Tim Robbins, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Paul Newman. And Paul Newman actually plays the antagonist in this, which is a lot different because in most of his other movies, he's always the protagonist. So he's the antagonist in this, named Sidney Musburger. Tim Robbins plays a guy who's just out of business school, a graduate school, named Norville Barnes, and he goes to Manhattan. He's from Muncie, Indiana, and he's trying to get a job in business. He moves to Manhattan and can't find a job anywhere. Nobody will hire him, so he starts out working in a mailroom as a mail clerk. In fact, it's in the Hudsucker building, and it's called that because the name of the owner of the business is Waring Hudsucker. So essentially, what happens is the owner dies, and the board of directors knows that once the death of the owner happens, that the stocks are going to be made public. And so the board decides that what they need to do is they need to put somebody in charge of the company who will run it into the ground. So they try to find a proxy, the Hudsucker Proxy. And they end up going with Tim Robbins' character, Norval Barnes. He comes up during a meeting and just makes a mess of everything trying to deliver the mail. And they instantly see him as this goofball who, if they put him in charge of the company, stocks are going to plummet, and then they can all buy the stocks really low, get rid of him, and bring that company back up. So it's this really cool looking, I mean, the way it's shot is, if you know the Coen brothers and how they shoot their movies, it's a very unique style. It's got great characters. Jennifer Jason Leigh plays this character named Amy Archer, who is a reporter, and she gets hired as his secretary to kind of spy on him and write a story about him for the local newspaper. And so there's this dynamic between him and her that actually works in a certain way that you're not expecting. But it's a lot of fun. It's a PG movie. It would probably be tough to get kids to really understand or get excited about this movie. But I think adults would love it. Just again, the style, the acting, the story is unique. It's a lot of fun, and I would definitely recommend it. I don't know if you've seen this before, right, Pat?
Yeah, I have seen it. It was one of them that I had loved the Coen brothers beforehand, but I'd seen a bunch of their movies, but I'd never seen this before. And,
Yeah.
a friend of mine actually had recommended it, and yeah, it's great. It's as good as any of their other stuff, but I had never heard of it before. It's hilarious. It has a nice energy to it. You totally sucked in, and it's like if you've enjoyed any of the Coen brothers movies that you mentioned, it's a must see.
And I would say that it might be their most comedic movie of any of the ones that they've made. I'm trying to think of any other movies that are as funny as this. There's a lot of dark comedy in their movies.
Right.
But this is more than that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't really describe this as a dark movie. It's a very fun movie.
Yeah, exactly. I love their movies. I don't know if I've seen a movie that they've done that I haven't liked. But again, of all the movies that they've done and all the awards that they've won, the Hudsucker Proxy is one of my favorites.
Cool. I just noticed that what I was looking for, thought I lent it to somebody and I didn't have it because I couldn't see it anywhere. But I have it. When I started thinking about these movies, it all started with What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and then it made me think of movies that reminded me of that. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'll make it like a theme. And my theme is just kind of like family and like movies that deal with that. And my next pick is Smoke Signals.
Oh yeah.
So this is from 1998. Yeah, it's great. It was marketed as coming from the heart of Native America, and was like a pretty big milestone in that it was a film made like entirely on and about Native Americans, that was like directed by Chris Eyre, who is a Cheyenne Arapaho. But it's all modern. It's not like a historical epic like Dances with Wolves. It's a family drama. So basically these are the three characters here. And it's about, similar to Gilbert Grape, actually. It's about a young man whose sort of life is just kind of stuck still, not really doing much. He lives with his mom, and his dad disappeared a long time ago, and has been living, they don't really know where. So the movie starts out, they live in northern Idaho. They're Coeur d'Alene, and they live on a reservation in the very, very north end of Idaho. And years ago, this boy, when he was a boy, his father abandoned them and was not really heard from again since. The movie starts out and they found out that he has died, and it's up to him to go and fetch the ashes, which are down in the Southwest. From there, it's kind of a road trip movie. He has this friend over here named Thomas, who is this total goofball, nerdy character.
I love his character.
Yeah, he's great. And the film flashes back between their present and then in the past when they were kids. And he's just kind of like this obnoxious sidekick that he can't get rid of, but he also kind of teaches him a lot about himself and his life, because it's also a movie about kind of coming to terms with your past and coming to terms with a father figure that you never really got any closure with. It's kind of heavy because it deals with like topics of abandonment and like family drama, but there's a lot of humor in it as well. Mm-hmm. And it's like a buddy movie on the road. By the end of it, it has like just a really, I think, satisfying, cathartic ending. It's, I don't know, you just really like, once again, you just really, really enjoy these characters. You spend the movie on the road with them as they leave the reservation, and like they're going the whole way by bus, and they meet all of these like side characters along the way who are lots of fun. And they actually they meet up with when they find finally where his father's been living all this time. They're there with Irene Bedard, who, for the longest time, I didn't know why her voice always sounded so familiar to me when I would watch this movie. She's the voice of Pocahontas in Disney's Pocahontas.
Okay.
And so that's, if your voice sounds familiar, that's why. But yeah, it's a movie about family and friendship, and you also kind of get a bit of a window into life as a Native person in America. It's not about the fact that they are Native American, but it's still like a window into like the everyday culture of it that I just also found really interesting, because there's not a whole lot of that. It's like, usually it's kind of like it focuses either on something kind of cliched, like there's like a casino somewhere, or it's historical and it's like a Western. But this is just like people who are like, yeah, we're still here and we're people and we're living our lives. And it's not about the fact that they're Native American. It just happens to be who they are and where the story is set.
Yeah, no, the characters are very genuine, very authentic. I like that, that it's not like the Hollywood A-list actors in this. And I think that makes the movie as good as it is, to be honest with you. I enjoyed it. I remember seeing the poster for that movie a long time ago, and I don't think I watched it until maybe just like a couple of years ago when you let me borrow it. But I really enjoyed it. I think that's a really good choice.
It's a nice story. If you're just looking for like the kind of movie where you just go on a journey with some really nice characters that you get to know, I recommend it very highly.
Awesome. So the next movie is probably the newest one that we have on our lists, What We Do in the Shadows. And this one I think is starting to become a little bit more popular because of Taika Waititi, who is the director and star of it. Well, one of them. But Taika has become a very big-time director lately. He directed Thor Ragnarok, and he recently did, it was hilarious. And he's got such a... He's a funny dude, and it comes across in all of his movies. Jojo Rabbit, he just won an Oscar for Jojo Rabbit for screenplay. And so he's starting to become a very big name. And this was one of his earliest movies. Came out in 2014 in New Zealand. It's called What We Do in the Shadows, and it's great. It's a vampire mockumentary. And when I first heard the idea of it, I wasn't really that interested. Like, oh, it's like a Big Brother kind of thing with vampires. And
exactly what I thought.
Yeah. But I gave it a chance, and to be honest, it's become one of my favorite movies of the last decade. It is so funny and so unique, and the characters are incredible. Taika plays a vampire named Viago, who lives in a house in Wellington, New Zealand, with 3 other vampires, which are played by Jermaine Clement, plays Vladislav. And then there's also Deacon as one of the vampires, and another vampire named Peter. They share this house in New Zealand, and it's sort of about how these vampires deal with, like, the mundane of, a normal human life, trying to get into nightclubs, figuring out who wants to do the chores, and just conflicts with each other and things like that. Because they're vampires, they need to drink blood. The way that they bring guests in to drain their blood and nourish them is hilarious. I don't know if there's a scene in this movie where I'm not smiling. I'm smiling the whole movie. It's that much fun, especially for a time like this when we need fun movies. Like this one, I can't imagine people not enjoying it. It's a really good time. And actually, Pat, you were the one who introduced me to it.
Yeah, everybody, that's why I feel like it grows in popularity. It's like you see this movie and you just need to tell everybody you know about this movie and to get them to see it too.
Yeah.
And it's you're willing to watch over and over again too.
Mm-hmm.
I also like that there's a lot of humor involved in the fact that they're all like centuries old, but they live in like the modern world with modern technology that they haven't really bothered to keep up with. So like it's all new to them. And there's a lot of really funny moments around that too.
Yeah, and there's a great interaction between them, the group of vampires, and there's also like a group of werewolves. that
Oh,
all
and
live in the
werewolves. I love
city.
the werewolves.
Yes, yes, and there's because it's Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi. There's a lot of tie-ins to like Flight of the Conchords. So there's some great cameos in there. If you know the show Flight of the Conchords, it's something that I didn't see for the first time until about 3 years ago, and in 3 years I've probably watched this movie about 30 times. Uh, it's just when you need something, if you're having a bad day, it's like to me like Austin Powers is one of those movies. When I'm having a bad day, I'll put on like Austin Powers, or I'll put on What We Do in the Shadows, or something just to cheer me up, and it always does.
It's great.
And it's kind of cool. I don't know too many other movies that I've seen that take place in New Zealand. There's actually another one by Taika Waititi called The Hunt for the Wilder People. That's also
Okay, that's also a really, really good movie.
yeah, also really, really good. Honestly, anything that has been made by Taika Waititi, you should see. I think I've seen all of his movies now, and I've loved them all. But What We Do in the Shadows is my favorite.
So I'm also gonna do my more recent pick next,
Okay.
because it couldn't be more different than that movie. So this is a movie that, like, I don't necessarily think that everybody's gonna like this movie, and it's not a bad thing. Like, some movies are just broadly likable. Like, I have Ferris Bueller in the background there, and like everybody likes Ferris Bueller. Like, who's not gonna like Ferris Bueller?
Yeah.
Some movies, some people are gonna love, and some people are gonna hate. Kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, people love that movie. Some people,
My favorite movie.
yeah, and then some people just cannot get into it at all.
Yeah.
And it's not like a bad thing either way. It's just different strokes for different folks. But it's like, this movie is very much in that category. I would definitely try it out, and you are either going to love it or you're just going to not be into it at all. And that is this film called The Tree of Life from 2011 by Terrence Malick. I'm going to put this closer to it too. I mean, even just that like cover, you might look at that and say, like, okay, what the heck is this about? It's honestly a movie I have a hard time even describing. It is about a small family in Texas in the 1950s, but it also flashes forward to when one of the kids is an adult. And also, for about 20 minutes during the movie, it just takes the time to tell the entire story of the history of the universe. And set to operatic music similar to like 2001: A Space Odyssey. We start out with like these gaseous clouds of nebulas, and then they form into gigantic suns and planets. And then you're with this life starting out in the oceans. And then it goes through history, and you see the dinosaurs, and then human beings. And then suddenly you're with this family. And I've never seen any movie do anything like that before. It's not heavily scripted. The entire thing was filmed on a Steadicam rig. And he followed around this family with vague ideas of the sense of who they were as a family. And he had a basic story in mind for them. But otherwise, it's like this collage. It's like a dream. You're moving and gliding through this world with this phenomenal selections of beautiful classical music. It's a very, I would say, religious film in a lot of ways. I think Terrence Malick is himself a devout Christian, but this movie is not, I wouldn't really call it like specifically Christian, or it's not religious in the sense of any specific religion, but the themes of it are dealing with like humanity and grace and nature and how people should live around one another. And I think that, like, whatever like religious background you have, I think you'll see it in some ways reflected in that. It's very much like a conversation about that. I think it's kind of cool because, yes, his Christianity is very important to him, and he clearly infuses the entire movie with it, or at least I think that he did. But it's not to the extent where it's exclusionary. So, like, you could be completely non-religious, or you could be like Muslim or Buddhist or Hindu, and I feel like you would still not feel excluded from the conversation and the topics and the themes of the movie. It's hard to describe, but it's one of the most beautiful looking movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Terrence Malick is like, I mean, I've seen a number of his movies, and all of his movies, The Thin Red Line, Badlands, and actually I've got Days of Heaven.
Yeah.
They're always so beautiful to look at. He does such a great job with the cinematography, and they're always amazing.
This is like my pick for if you're in the mood to try out something really different, and to just give it a chance. And if you're not into it, like, you don't have to finish it. But you might just end up being really sucked into a really, really unique movie experience. You've seen it, right?
I have, yeah. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I did. Yeah, good choice. I would say though, even if you're not really into the story, if you're not, into that, you can still appreciate just the look of the movie. Just the way that everything is shot. It's just a great movie visually to look at.
He has some really great child actors in it too. Like he clearly knew how to set up a scene with it goes in the theme of like some of the other movies I was talking about where it's like it's one thing to direct a movie and have a specific scene where there's actors delivering like intense lines of dialogue like I want the truth, you can't handle the truth, but it's like another thing to create a family and have them feel real and to be with them at the dinner table and to hear them talking over each other and interrupting and to get the sense that there's a million different pieces of backstory you don't know about them yet that have made their dynamic exactly the way it is at that moment. And I'm always impressed by directors who are able to put that on a screen because I think that's really hard to do.
Mm-hmm. One of the images that's just burned into my brain from that movie is the scene. It's like the 1950s, and there's like a truck going by that's got the DEET.
Oh yeah.
And they're shooting like this, like the DEET, the pesticides and all that stuff, and the kids are running around and they're playing in the smoke and everything, and you're just like, oh my God, do they have any idea what that is? And that's like that was actually the case back then. People didn't realize what that stuff was actually doing. So it's pretty cool. It's definitely, I 100% agree with you that there's no other movie quite like it.
Yeah.
All right, so those are some films from us, our personal collections that we really like and we think that you'll like, and they all have a happy ending, so that way you can all feel good after you watch it. It's a tough time right now, so we wanted to be sure that we're giving you recommendations of some movies you may not have seen, but also movies that'll make you feel good at the end of the day. Hope you liked it. Hope you actually get out and find these movies and get a chance to watch them. And if you do, let us know what you think. We'd be happy to hear your opinions on some of these movies if you did like them and what you thought of them. But anyway,
what's your own recommendations too? Because Mark and I love watching movies, and we're always interested in people's picks that we may have never heard of.
Yeah, I mean, we've both seen a lot, but we also haven't seen a lot. So there's plenty of movies out there that we would still love to see. So yeah, if you've got any that you would recommend, please send them our way. Otherwise, Pat, it's been great. We'll do this again soon.
Yeah, let's make it look like we're shaking hands.
All right.
No, you have to put your hand below it. See, so it's like that.
We're not really shaking hands, but anyway, so yeah, we hope to do this again soon, and hope you guys like it, and I guess we'll catch you later.
All right, bye.
See you later.